Are we panicking after week 1?
Oh, man, some of us are. I'm not yet because,
No,
hey, you can't make decisions off of week 1. You can make observations, though. Last year, week 1, you remember Calvin Ridley went off.
he did.
And then, everyone, I think I came on here and was like, yeah, throw a first round pick at Calvin Ridley. Go for it. Like, I've seen enough. Didn't have quite that great of a year. Had a decent overall finish because he played a lot. But, I think week 1, you see these games that these teams have been prepping for weeks. Now they're way into the season. Each team only has a week, maybe 2 if they're coming off a bye to prep for their opponent. But these games, these teams have had weeks upon weeks to prep for these opponents. I don't think we can necessarily go off of what actually happened, but we can look at, volume, who was targeted, who was part of the offense. I think those things are more important in week 1 than the actual production.
Nate, kick it off to you. Who is your buy?
There's a lot of fear going around right now about the Ravens tight end situation. I'm going to break it down for you, okay? I have Mark Andrews as a buy. Okay, currently 89 overall in keep trade cut. He's the tight end 8. The tight end 8, Mike. Ridiculous. Okay, so let me just calm your nerves real quick. I know Isaiah Likely did great last week, okay? But Mark Andrews did run more routes than Isaiah Likely. He ran 38 to Isaiah Likely's 35, and he was in the slot more than Isaiah Likely. He was in the slot for 31 snaps versus Isaiah Likely was only in there for 16. Isaiah Likely actually lined up more in line than Mark Andrews did. But what was happening last week was that he was double and triple covered by the Chiefs all game. They knew this guy is dangerous. This is Lamar's favorite receiver. If we take Mark Andrews out of the game, they have to beat us with somebody else. They didn't expect Likely to be that guy. Now they still ended up winning, but there were other parts of this offense that started to show out. But at the end of the day, this offense still runs through Mark Andrews. He is coming off a car accident that he had in the offseason where he actually missed 2 or 3 weeks of practice. He only really got back to practice about a week before opening day. So he's definitely not in full football shape yet. That's another thing that happened. So there's still some rust coming off of Mark Andrews. The Chiefs game planned him out of the offense. And if you look at the statistics, he actually played pretty well, just not production-wise. Okay, he actually got separation pretty well. According to Fantasy Points, he was second among all tight ends last week for creating separation wins per route. He was actually just about 20%, which was second among tight ends. I'm not worried about Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is still a buy for me. And the fact that he's dropped in rankings to where you can maybe trade J-Mo, Jordan Addison, Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper even. Amari Cooper's going for some players that I've seen that I think are kind of above his pay grade, especially with how the Browns offense is looking. But you can go get Mark Andrews pretty accessible right now. And I'm loving that if you need a tight end. But also, what are we doing with Isaiah Likely? I kind of got to do a double dip here because we got these 2 tight ends that we're talking about. And Likely had incredible production. Okay, he is scary after the catch. I think he was averaging 9 yards after the catch on Thursday night. And the Ravens used a lot of 12 personnel. So 1 running back, 2 tight ends. And we're going to see a lot more of this throughout the season. They talked about this all offseason, that Isaiah Likely looked good last season, and they wanted to get him more involved in the offense. We saw that from week 1. But there's definitely going to be, both of these guys out there. And Mark Andrews is still the tight end 1. Chiefs are one of the best teams in the NFL, one of the best defenses in the NFL. I know we like to think about the Chiefs and Mahomes, but they have one of the best defenses in the NFL as well. And they schemed Mark Andrews out of the game. I think going forward, we can expect both these guys to be pretty productive. I think the Ravens could actually have 2 top 12 tight ends. Not that it's really hard to be a top 12 tight end. But I think I could see Andrews finishing around tight end 5, 6, likely probably maybe like 9 or 10 right below him. So I think both these guys can coexist in this offense. Bateman had 5 targets, but didn't really show out except for a big catch. And there's not really a wide receiver 3 there. So these 2 tight ends, they're going to get their due. I'm good with both of them, but Mark Andrews, definitely a buy for me.
But if you need running back help, wide receiver help, somebody got banged up, then yeah, I would say Isaiah Likely would be a good candidate to move if you have somebody else. Speaking of which, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sell a tight end. I know it's something I don't normally do very often. Hear me out. I'm going to sell Cleveland tight end David Njoku, player 131 and keep trade cut. Tight end 13. I don't think he's going to be tight end 13 this year, even though he was tight end 6 last year. 81 catches, 882 yards, and 6 touchdowns. But unfortunately, he got a quarterback downgrade this year with Deshaun Watson coming back. Listen, put your pitchforks away. Have you seen Deshaun Watson play football lately? It is brutal. I don't know what happened to this man. This is not the same Deshaun Watson from Houston. This is some other variation. I don't think, again, he's going to be a tight end 1 at all. Overall, tight end 6, definitely not happening. So get this. Aside from his tight end 6 finish last year, Nate, his next best finish was tight end 9 in 2018 and tight end 11 in 2022. So there's some big gaps in there. He misses a lot of time with injury. Yeah, I think for right now, I'm selling pretty much any pass catcher from Cleveland that I can. I don't know if I want any of these guys. The running backs like Jerome Ford, I think it's going to be sustainable. And you know what? If you think you're going to have a late season push, Nick Chubb could be a guy that could be possibly a good buy for you. I don't think I could get a first for him. I would take a second. But right now in season, I want to move him for a player. So I would consider a guy like a Jake Ferguson, somewhat of that ilk. Can I pair him with something and possibly upgrade? Nate, who are you going ahead and avoiding? Tell us that. And I saw this one and I think it's a strange avoid because this is a hot commodity right now.
It's definitely a hot commodity. Maybe a little too hot for me, though, Mike. I'm avoiding Xavier Worthy. And I'm not selling Xavier Worthy. I'll make that clear. I'm not selling Xavier Worthy. I don't hate Xavier Worthy. I'm just avoiding him at his current price because on Keep Trade Cut, last time I checked, he was wide receiver 19. Rashee Rice is also up there as a top 20 wide receiver in Keep Trade Cut. Now, Mahomes is very talented, so I'm not saying Mahomes can't, support 2 top 20 wide receivers, but Travis Kelce's there. Hollywood Brown's coming back at some point. I don't think that I can pay up for Xavier Worthy at wide receiver 19 prices. I thought he was a great pick at the end of the first. I think offseason value was good. Just maybe, we have 2 touchdowns in his opening, and that's incredible. It was an incredible performance by Xavier Worthy. He really got to show off his speed, his explosiveness, that game-changing ability that we've talked about for years now, watching him at Texas. But he scored a touchdown on a reverse. It's not going to happen all the time. That shows his versatility, but that I'm not going to rely on that becoming, a way for him to get in the end zone very often. And then the second touchdown on a completely busted coverage, miscommunication. Marlon Humphrey thought he had safety help. It was a single high safety. They were lined up in man. He let him go past him. I don't know what was going on there, but that was easiest touchdown ever for Xavier Worthy in his career. Not trying to discount his production, though it sounds like I am. I'm just saying that it's not the most easily projectable production moving forward, because if you look at it, he only had 3 targets. He had 3 targets, and he had that rush, that sweep that he had for the touchdown. Meanwhile, Rashee Rice had 9 targets. Travis Kelce only had 4 targets himself, and that's not going to happen very often. He's going to see a lot more than 4 targets in a lot of these games moving forward for the Chiefs. And like I said, Marquise Brown's coming back. So I'm just not willing to pay up wide receiver 19 prices. I'm looking more like, I would pay a 25 first and like a third on top or something like that. But you're not going to get that. You're not going to be able to get Xavier Worthy for that. You're going to pay more than that at this point. So for me, I'm just avoiding adding him to my team, but I'm going to keep an eye on him because if he has a couple bad games or it's up and down for Xavier Worthy, which I kind of expect his rookie year in that offense, I could be back in at a little bit cheaper price tag.
Who would you rather have, Xavier Worthy or Jameson Williams?
I'd rather have Xavier Worthy. Though Jameson Williams has looked really good, and that's actually, I know I answered that really quick, but that's actually a pretty close one if J-Mo can continue to step it up over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, really surprised me with the stat line he put up. But, I did talk about week 1 can be fluky. So let's see if Jameson Williams can keep this up. We did hear the camp hype that he's a different player this year. Per the coaches, I guess we kind of brushed it off as coach speak, but sometimes coach speak is the truth. So, yeah, I agree with you for right now, Xavier Worthy.
One of the reasons why I'm avoiding Xavier Worthy is just because of value. Because I was thinking about this today. I want to make sure I mention it on the podcast. My strategy when I play Dynasty Fantasy Football is I know that I don't know what's going to happen. Okay. I am well aware I don't know what's going to happen over the next 17 weeks of the NFL season. I have guesses. I have, what I feel like are good guesses. But at the end of the day, the best thing I can do to prepare myself for this season is to build value and to go off of value and just make sure that I'm in the best position to win moving forward, because I don't know exactly who's going to go off each week, who's not going to do well, who's going to bust out. But if I just create good value around my team, I'm going to give myself a chance each year. And, paying up for Xavier Worthy might not be the best value right now.
Hey, look, I've talked about him before. I just want to reiterate, I'm all in on Cincinnati Bengals running back Zack Moss. He's player 148 on Keep Trade Cut. He's running back 37, which I find odd. He looks like the 1-8 to me. They're having some wide receiver issues right now. T. Higgins didn't play. Jamar Chase is just doing Jamar Chase things. We saw what this offense can do for running backs, which is last year, Joe Mixon, running back 6, Nate, 257 carries. Also, He had another good week 1,034 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 52 receptions, 376 yards and 3 touchdowns. I do not see him being running back 6. I don't see him putting up Joe Mixon numbers, but he can handle a workload, and he's going to outperform his running back 37 ranking if healthy. He's affordable too. That's the thing. He's available. You can get him for 2/3. I saw a couple trades, multiple trades. I saw him going for a second. I don't know who's trading him for 2/3. Somebody make these deals with me, please.
All right.
I offered 2 seconds for Zack Moss, and the guy laughed at me. I feel like people are going to push for a late first. I also saw a couple trades. Him go straight up for Najee Harris, which, based on how Najee looked this first week, might not be the worst trade to make right now. But, you're buying the offense as a whole. What do you trust more, a Justin Fields or Russell Wilson-led offense that's being play called by Arthur Smith? Pick your poison there. So that's my buy, Zack Moss. Nate, who are you selling? It's time to burn this to the ground.
It's time, Mike. You know who I'm selling? The guy that had 2 receptions for 15 yards and is still valued as the wide receiver 13 on Keep Trade Cut. That's Drake London. Drake London, 34 overall.
Oh,
Wide receiver 13 on Keep Trade Cut.
where
Goes out there, 3 targets, 2 receptions, 15 yards. Wide receiver 83 on the week, Mike. Not great, Bob. Now, let's be honest. This is not like a Drake London issue. Like, it's not, I'm not saying he's not talented, but like, he's on the Falcons. I've been trying to tell you guys for 2 years, this is not the place to score fantasy points. Now they got Kirk Cousins back. Yeah, what's up, Mike?
He got outproduced by Tyquan Thornton this past week.
That's a sentence I didn't think you'd ever say to me.
But here we are, man. It happened.
It happened. Drake London. I'm sorry, guy, but the Falcons not the place to score fantasy points. We can see that. Look, we've all been burnt by Kyle Pitts. Many of you have been burnt by Drake London, not me. But it's not all his fault. Look, Kirk Cousins' statue back there. I don't know, if Mike, how much of the Falcons game you've watched since it happened, but if you watch any of the offensive snaps, Kirk Cousins does not move. It's pretty bad. You start watching it and you realize, this guy is not. I mean, it's not like Kirk was super mobile before, but Kirk's not really moving around a lot. And you can see in that Achilles, like even some of the ways that he's following through on his throws, it's not there. He's definitely not 100% healthy. Now, brings up some Brian Windhorst memes where he's like, what's going on over there in Atlanta? Because, you're talking about Michael Penix Jr. being there. Is Michael Penix the key to unlocking Drake London?
Doubtful.
I don't know, Mike, but it's not. We're not going to see it at least for a couple weeks. We might see it sometime this year. But even if Penix does come in, a rookie quarterback on that team, I don't think that skyrockets London's value at all or his production. I think he's kind of in a tough spot until we see the Falcons actually put together a good offense. We haven't seen it in many years since Matt Ryan was there. So until we see that, I am completely out on Drake London. I'm selling him at those prices. Like, it's even hurting Pitts. Pitts had 3 targets, 3 receptions, 26 yards. He did have a touchdown, kind of saved his week. And tight ends across the board played terrible, so he still ended up having a pretty good week in comparison to the rest of the tight ends. I just can't do it with Drake London until we see it actually work. So I'm selling Drake London for Devonta Smith, Saquon Barkley, Rashee Rice. And Mike, my biggest question is, what do I have to add to London, if anything, to go get Nico Collins?
Well, I feel like people are starting to finally come around to
Nico.
Well, that, yes. But I mean, the other way, people are coming around to Drake London is just not at this point going to be what they think he is. So it might at least be a second, I would say. Maybe more. I mean, it's in season, so a lot of times it's hard to move future picks. People want players at this point.
Mike, hit us up with your last one. You got
All right, my hold/avoid. I'm holding Brian Robinson Jr. He's my steady Eddie. Low ceiling, high floor. That's Brian Robinson. You need guys like this to help you win.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why he's my hold. I have a lot of Brian Robinson. Nate, you know that. I've been a fan since day one. His value when he got drafted and where we were drafting him, rookie drafts. I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to see what I end up with. In multiple leagues, I've had people reaching out numerous times about Brian Robinson. I'm not convinced that Austin Eckler is going to eat in his workload too much. It's only one game. Jaden Daniels did a lot of running in this game, but I just think overall Austin Eckler, he's out of gas or it's on E. And let's not forget, he doesn't go over 100 yards very often, rushing that is. But with his receiving added in, he's a very good and very viable back. Check this out. I did some digging into his receiving improvement from 22 to 23. You're going to love this. 2022, 9 catches, 60 yards, and 1 touchdown. In 23, 36 catches, 368 yards, and 4 touchdowns. But last year, his average depth of target was negative 1.2 yards. So he's catching most of his passes behind the line of scrimmage, Nate, but his yak rec was 11.4 yards. So this guy is catching the ball and then running 12 yards after that most of the time. It's amazing. He was number 1 in running back yards per reception last year as well, and that's 10.2. That is impressive.
I didn't think he would keep it up, but he looked pretty good in week 1. Still was part of the receiving game. So, hey, yeah, I'm in.